The Adventures of Prickly Porky. Chapter 8. Prickly Porky Nearly Chokes. Hardly was Jimmy Skunk beyond sight and hearing after having made his call than Red-Eye the Vireo, whose home is in the tree just at the foot of the hill where Prickly Porky lives, heard a very strange noise. He was very busy, was Red-Eye, telling all who would listen how happy he was and what a beautiful world this is. Red-Eye seemed to think that this is his special mission in life, that he was put in the green forest for this one special purpose, to sing all day long, even the most hottest weather, when other birds forget to sing. His little song of gladness and happiness, it never seems to enter his head that he's making other people happy just by being happy himself and saying so. At first he hardly noticed the strange noise, but when he stopped singing for a bit of rest, he heard it very plainly. And it sounded so very strange that he flew up the hill towards the place from where it seemed to come. And there his bright eyes soon discovered Prickly Porky. Right away he saw Prickly Porky was in some kind of trouble, and that it was he who was making the strange noise. Prickly Porky was on the ground at the foot of the tree. He was rolling over and kicking and clawing at his mouth, from which a little piece of bark was hanging. It was such a strange performance that Red-Eye simply stared for a minute. Then in a flash it came to him what it meant. Prickly Porky was choking, and if something wasn't done to help him, he might choke to death. Now there was nothing that Red-Eye himself could do to help, for he was too small. He must help somewhere else, and he must do it quickly. Anxiously he looked this way and that way, but there was no one in sight. Then he remembered that Uncle Billy Possum's hollow tree was not far away. Perhaps Uncle Billy could help. He hoped that Uncle Billy was at home, and he wasted no time in finding out. Uncle Billy was at home, and when he heard that his old friend Prickly Porky was in trouble, he hurried up the hill as fast as he ever could. He saw right away what was the trouble. "You keep still there a minute, Brer Porky," he commanded, for he did not go very near while Brer Porky was rolling and kicking around so, for that he would get against some of those 1,000 little spears Prickly Porky carries hidden in his coat. Prickly Porky did as he was told. Indeed, he was so weak from his long struggle that he was glad to. Uncle Billy caught hold of the piece of bark hanging from Prickly Porky's mouth. Then he braced himself and pulled with all his might. For a minute the piece of bark held. Then it gave way so suddenly that Uncle Billy fell over flat on his back. Uncle Billy scrambled to his feet and looked reproachfully at Prickly Porky, who lay panting for breath and with big tears rolling down his face. "I certainly am surprised, Brer Porky. I certainly am surprised that you should be so greedy that you'll choke yourself," said Uncle Billy, shaking his head. Prickly Porky grinned weakly and rather foolishly. "It wasn't greed, Uncle Billy. It wasn't greed at all," he replied. "Then what is it, may I ask?" demanded Uncle Billy severely. "I thought of something very funny in the middle of my meal, and I laughed just as I started to swallow, and the piece of bark went down the wrong way," explained Prickly Porky. And then, as if the mere thought of the thing that had made him laugh was too much for him, he began to laugh again. "Ha, ha, ha! Ho, ho, ho!" He laughed and laughed and laughed until finally Uncle Billy quite lost his patience. "You certainly have lost your manners, Brer Porky," he snapped. Prickly Porky wiped the tears from his eyes. "Come closer so I can whisper, Uncle Billy," said he, a little suspicious. Uncle Billy came near enough for Prickly Porky to whisper, and when he had finished, Uncle Billy was wiping tears of laughter from his own eyes.